Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast, episode number 42.
You're listening to the Cash Car Convert Podcast with James Kinson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cash Car Convert Podcast. My name is James Kinson and I am the Cash Car Convert. And this is the podcast where cash cars are cool and auto debt is dangerous to your financial future. I want to welcome everybody to the show today. It's an honor to be back on board with you guys and getting a chance to give you my thoughts on a few things that I've read about or saw or thought about this past week. And I want to start with a conversation I had. And this was just a chance conversation. I was on the phone with a gentleman, I'll just call him John. And John is a leasing rep. And he leases equipment to companies. And so that's what he does for a living. So he and I were chatting a while, and once I got an opportunity, I asked him about how he bought his cars. Did he buy his cars via leasing? And he said, oh, certainly not. And he said that that for one thing, he didn't like the idea of being constrained on mileage, and that he thought that was a problem. And we talked a bit about depreciation. We talked a bit about the value of the lease and the fact that when you're finished with the lease, the car goes back to the leasing company, and you as the person who's been paying for that car for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever the term of the lease was, now wind up with nothing, and you're starting from ground zero looking to find another vehicle. And so he didn't think that was a very good way to do business. I also quoted for him a quote from Consumer Reports, an editor there who said that if he was going to devise the most expensive way to buy a car, he would buy it when it was at the highest point of its depreciation curve, keep it for a short period of time, and then turn it in and get another car at the height of its depreciation curve. And he said, when you think about it, that's what you're doing when you lease a vehicle. And that's true. If you want to go out to Edmunds.com and look at their depreciation calculator, you will see quite quickly that the depreciation curve for any vehicle, or the highest amount of depreciation, comes in the first year, and then in the first 2 years combined, and so forth. And finally, after about year 4 and 5, it starts to flatten out, and you see a much better depreciation curve. It still is depreciating, but not nearly at the speed with which it was on the front end. So in speaking to John, I had another really interesting conversation with him. As I asked him about how he personally bought cars, he told me that the way I buy cars, most people wouldn't do. He said, historically, I've considered buying a 2-year-old used car the absolute best way to go. He goes, but with my last few vehicles, he goes, I've really worked the system hard, and I've come away really doing well. And he shared with me the experience of the last new car he had purchased. And this gentleman does like to buy new cars, so I'm just going to say I'm going to assume he can afford the appreciation hit, the depreciation hit that happens when you buy those cars. But nonetheless, that's the way he buys. So he told me he went out and he was looking to buy a $52,000 Lexus SUV back in 2010. And I guess I should also state that he drives cars for a long, long time once he buys them. So he buys them new, and then he drives them for an extended period of time before he does something different with them. So in 2010, he was going to buy this new Lexus SUV. And what he did to start the process is he sent a letter to 40 dealerships, giving them an opportunity to bid to him and sell him a vehicle. And he didn't really go into how much time elapsed and how much work he had to do, but I'm just going to say it was probably a great deal of time on his part and quite a bit of effort. And I don't think that most people would be willing to do this as a way to try and get a really good deal. He said he finally got it down to 2 dealers that were still working with him. And he'd been working with this one salesman for a long time at this one dealership. And finally, he said the owner of the dealership called him and said, listen, I'm going to give you a really, really good deal on this car. I'm going to sell it to you for less than I have in it. But it's because if I can get you to buy this car today, then I'm going to reach a bonus based on a quarterly bonus based on new car sales. And so it's worth it to me to do this, but it's only worth it if you do it today. So he did. He went in and he bought that Lexus SUV that had a sticker price of $52,000, and he bought it for $38,000 the last day before the end of a quarter at a new car dealership. Now, I don't know how repeatable this would be, but I did want to let you guys know, because I know some of you are you're not going to take my advice and you're not going to buy a used car. You're going to continue to buy new. And I'm just going to tell you that if you're going to do that, first of all, do pay cash. But even if you're not going to do that, make sure you're getting the absolute best deal that you can. What this gentleman shared with me, and I haven't validated this, and I don't know that I have a way to, but he told me that the first 2 years he owned that vehicle, he got such a good deal on it that even with the steep depreciation curve that new vehicles have, his car was worth more after 2 years in a Blue Book value, or Kelley Blue Book, or Edmunds.com value, than what he paid for it. So he absolutely bought it right. If you're going to buy a new car, he absolutely did it the right way. But there was a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I don't think most people are going to take that much time and effort, even though you could argue it was really worthwhile. I mean, he saved $14,000 on a new car that's stickered for $52,000. That is a monster savings. Again, I don't know how repeatable that is. I don't have a lot of details to validate his story, but I know this gentleman well enough to believe that what he told me is credible, and I believe him. So John knows how to work the system and get a really great car, but it's with a lot of sweat equity. So just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was a really interesting story. It caught me off guard. I didn't expect him to relay a tale like that to me, but I thought it was really interesting, and I did want to share it here on the show today. The next thing I want to talk about today, and this was, again, sort of a happenstance kind of thing. My daughter and I were watching the Velocity channel the other day. I was actually in the kitchen making her a snack or something, and I heard this commercial come on, and it opened with a gentleman complaining about his car. He had purchased a $40,000 car, and within no time it was T-boned by a minivan, he says. Then he goes on to say that his insurance company offered him $37,000 for a car that hadn't even had its first oil change yet. And he was saying, how can it be that my car has depreciated this quickly? And then he says, well, wait a minute. A better question is, why am I going with an insurance company that would do something like this to me? And I thought, well, what? Wait a minute. Really? The better question is about the insurance company? No, I think he was on the right question before. Why is he buying a new vehicle and taking that kind of a depreciation hit the moment he drives it off the lot, instead of buying something a couple of years old and allowing that depreciation to not be quite so painful? So I found it really interesting, and I thought it was worth bringing up here. The company, by the way, was Liberty Mutual Insurance. I don't know if that commercial's out on YouTube or anything like that, but you might want to look it up. I thought it was, again, was pretty funny to watch. And, I think to people who buy new cars, that probably is pretty compelling. They're going to be more concerned about the fact that the insurance company isn't giving them the $3,000 for lost depreciation on their vehicle, rather than realizing that their car does depreciate that quickly. And, it's only the fact that he had an accident that he realized that he had already lost that much money in the vehicle. I guess the thing I would close with on this story is people know this is how the system works. People know intellectually that when they buy a car, it depreciates, a great deal very early on. And I guess the thing that really kind of frustrates me about it is that they seem shocked or act surprised when somebody actually, does business in a way that it shows them the error of their ways. So if you're out there and you're looking to buy a new car, you can certainly find an insurance company, and evidently Liberty Mutual will do that for you, where they will, they'll make you whole on that lost depreciation. But, I would encourage you to do something different. I didn't say it. I think Dave Ramsey says it. I think Tom Stanley says it. They both say, unless you're a millionaire, you can't afford the depreciation on a new car. And I think that's a fair statement. With the median income in the U.S. still being around $52K, with the depreciation on a $32,000 car being about $7,800, that's a big hit to the wallet of somebody who's making $52,000 a year. So I'm with these guys. I don't know if you have to be a millionaire, but I would at least advise you to go in with your eyes wide open that you are taking a real bath on any new car that you buy, unless you can buy it like John and buy it so low that the depreciation curve doesn't catch up with you for a couple of years. And I'll have some links in the show notes to some of this information on if I can find the Liberty Mutual commercial. I'll have that linked up in the show notes, and that'll be cashcarconvert.com/042 for episode 42. Now to sort of the meat of this show, and this is something I learned about a few years ago, but it's one of those things that just keeps coming up in my mind, and so I wanted to talk about it today on the show. And what I'm going to talk about here is the Stanford Marshmallow Test. Now, maybe some of you have heard of this, and if so, my apologies for regurgitating something that you've already have some information about. But the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment, it was a series of studies that were done in the 60s and 70s by a psychologist named Walter Mischel, and he was then a professor at Stanford, and that's why they gave the name. And the reason it's called the Marshmallow Test is a marshmallow was one of the items that they would use to do this test. Sometimes it was a cookie or a pretzel or something else, but oftentimes it was a marshmallow, and that seems to be the one that resonated most with the public, and therefore that's the one we hear about. Basically, the way this test worked is they would take children somewhere between the ages of 3 and 6, and they would bring them in and they would set them in a room. A tester would come in, place a marshmallow, or a cookie or something else in front of the child, and they would say, okay, you can have this marshmallow and you can eat it right now, or if you can wait 15 minutes, I'm going to come back and you can have 2 marshmallows. Now, the thing that happened here is that most of the children couldn't wait. Now, some of this was based on age of the children. The older children tended to do a better job than the younger children and so forth. But what they did, and the really interesting follow-up to this, is they went back and they studied these kids, and I believe the number is about 14 years later. So when most of these kids were, college age or about to go to college, and what they found is that the outcomes for the children who were able to wait the 15 minutes and to get the 2 marshmallows, they measured better on their SAT scores. Their grades were better. They were physically better, in better shape, better health, and other areas of their lives as well. Their relationships, they were just more grounded and able to focus more. It appeared in terms of the things that make us successful in life. They had a better focus in those areas. Now, the reason I'm talking to you about all of this is because this goes to somebody's ability to defer gratification, and I think this is one of the hallmarks of somebody being able to be successful. It's the person who can delay gratification and do the thing they need to do, or wait for the thing that they want until they can actually afford it or do it, that see the most benefits. And that's what this test kind of bore out. And it's one of those things that, as somebody who has struggled with that in my life, I know that when my why is big enough, I oftentimes will be able to have the stick-to-itiveness, to the gumption, the grit to do, to deprive myself of the thing that I want while I'm working on the thing that I need to be doing. I want to challenge all of you out there that are listening about debt, about car payments in particular, right? That do you really need to drive a new car, or do you just want a new car? Do you really need the kind of vehicle that you're driving, or are you driving the kind of vehicle that you want people to view as making you successful? What if we were to turn things around, and instead of every time you saw somebody in a new car, we assume that people think, wow, that person's really doing well. I mean, look at that new Lexus, look at that new Cadillac, look at that new BMW, look at that new Honda or Toyota. We want people to perceive us as being successful for having those new vehicles, when in reality, all it really tells people is that we bought a new car. It doesn't tell them whether we are successful or not. It doesn't tell them about our financial situation at home or not. And so there's really not anything you can read into it. But what I can tell you, based on the data that I've looked at over the last few months as I've been doing this podcast and the blog before that, is that more often than not, people are in debt for those vehicles. People who buy new cars, they're not paying cash. They're leasing more and more. They're buying with longer term loans because their income has fallen. And so we wind up in this situation where we want to look good to people, but that desire to look good is really hurting us in reality. So I'm going to challenge you to say, you can be, a $50,000 millionaire, or you can be a millionaire, but you can't really do both. So you need to decide what it is you want to do. And it's interesting. There's also an interesting TED Talk out there, and I'll link this up in the show notes, where a gentleman, he titled it, "Don't Eat That Marshmallow." And that's my message to you. Don't eat that marshmallow. Take your time, defer some gratification. I don't care if it's a car. I don't care if it's furniture. I don't care if it's clothes. Don't just do it because you want it. Don't just do it because it feels good. Don't do it to bury pain in another area of your life. Don't shop to make you feel better about your work life or your home life or whatever. So I'm really going to challenge you to do that. Okay, there is one more item I want to talk about as it relates to this marshmallow test, and that is there's an article that was written, and it was discussed in Business Week. And what these researchers did, and it was Celeste Kidd, Holly Palmieri, and Richard Aslan. And what they do is they challenge what the test that Mr. Michel did, what it really measured. And so I want to give you this alternative thought process. And while I do believe that grit and deferred gratification are key elements to success, I do want to bring this other item into it because some of you, this isn't going to be about you. This is going to be about your children. And what they found is they replicated Mr. Michel's test, or Professor Michel's test. And what they did before they replicated the test, what they would do is they would go into a child who was coloring, and they would tell them, listen, if you can wait 15 minutes, we'll give you some better colors, better coloring utensils. And so these kids would, try and do this. And what they did is they had the person who was coming in and telling them this. Sometimes that person wouldn't follow through. And so they would have effectively lied to the child. And so the child saw that on occasion, somebody would tell them something like this and it wasn't true. So then they went back and they gave these children the marshmallow test, and almost universally, they ate the marshmallow immediately, given the circumstances that they had been through previously. Whereas when the children who had gotten the better arts materials, when they went back and took the marshmallow test, they actually were able to hold out longer in greater numbers. I believe the number was 1/3 of the kids were able to hold out for the marshmallow. And this is much better than what we saw in the test that Mr. Michel ran. Now, I tell you all of this because what they surmise from this is that if a child lives in an environment where people don't care about them or where people aren't being honest with them, then they may very well eat that marshmallow right away because they're not used to adults telling them the truth or having their best interests at heart. And as sad as that makes me to think about, I wanted to put that out there to you folks who do have children, to let you know that, the way we interact with our children and the way we show compassion to them for things that are going on in their lives and the way we are interested in their lives and our honesty into their lives all makes a difference, and it all matters. And it may matter a great deal. It may give them more hope and belief that good things are going to happen to them. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but it just popped into my head. I was raised fairly poor. We never went hungry. We always had food on the table, but we were definitely poor. And the one thing that I always knew in my household is that my mom and dad loved me, and I never doubted that for a minute. I always knew that. And that made such a big difference, I think, as I look back, the way I interacted with the world. I wasn't popular. I was shy. I was, scared. I was, all these things. But I always knew I was loved at home, and it was a very safe place for me to go. And I think that gave me, a better springboard into life after I was able to move out on my own and start to live my life. That, I trusted people. I hadn't really been wronged by an adult in any big way when I was a child. So I had a really good life from that perspective. And I think that makes a big difference as these children are growing up. So I just wanted to pass on that second aspect of this test to say, not that you don't know this, but the way we raise our kids matters. You can talk about all the genetics and all that, and people do have predispositions. I do believe that people have predispositions to be a certain way, but I also believe that they can still be brought up in such a way that makes a difference in their life. So I would encourage you to engage with your children, be there for them, let them know that you care and that you're engaged and that you want to be a part of their life. And I think that will really pay benefits and dividends down the road. So again, just something I wanted to bring up, and I'll link these things up in the show notes if you want to go out there and take a look. I think there's some really interesting information out there, and I've kind of just scratched the surface of it here in this podcast. So I would really encourage you to go out there and give that a look. Well, with that, I'm going to wrap the show here and just give you a little update on a few personal things. I will be at FinCon September 18th through the 20th, and that's going to be at the New Orleans Marriott. So if you're going to be in that area, I would love for you to reach out to me, and I'd love to spend some time with you, meet you. If you're a fan of the show, please reach out and let's talk. The other thing that's come up around this is there is an award out there for the best personal finance podcast, and it's called the Plutus Awards, a name which I butchered when I let people know about it on my show. But I want to thank all of you who went out and took the time to vote for the Cash Car Convert podcast as the best personal finance podcast, because somehow I made the finals. So I'm in there with 5 other very well done shows, and it's an honor for me to even be mentioned in the same sentence with these guys. And so I just wanted to pass along the information that I did make the finals, and that the Plutus Awards ceremony will be at the end of FinCon. So it's the last event at FinCon on the 20th of September. So they will be coming out with the remaining, or they'll be announcing the award winners at that time. And like I said before, I am just honored to be a part of this and to have my show even mentioned in the same sentence with some of these other podcasts is just such an honor. And I'm so blown away. I've only been podcasting for just a few months, 8 months now. And so I'm just as shocked as I could be that my name was up there. And I owe a real debt of honor and thanks to my friend Steve Stewart, who blogs and podcasts at Money Plan SOS. He's the one that let me know about this. I know he voted for my show, and so I was very honored to have been a finalist here with him as well. So the finalists are myself, Dough Roller Podcast, Listen Money Matters Podcast, Money Plan SOS Podcast, and the Stacking Benjamins Podcast. So all very good podcasts. Again, it's an honor for me to be associated with these fine podcasts, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to be mentioned with them and to have my name associated with them. It's quite an honor. So I want to thank you very much for that. I also want to talk to you about something else. I was really struggling earlier this week. I had a really kind of a stressful day, and I wasn't feeling all that good about things. And I work really hard to try not to let my external circumstances determine my level of joy and happiness. I know that the joy that I have in my life most days, it doesn't come from what's going on in my life or any of the external things that are going on. It comes from the inside, and it comes from the joy that I have in knowing that I have a relationship with my Savior and with my God. And those things sustain me through all things, and they give me joy most every day. But for whatever reason, this particular day, I was letting external circumstances kind of drive my mood, and I was really feeling kind of down and out. And I had a couple of good things happen. When I went and picked up my daughter from school, I was able to spend a lot of time with her. My wife happened to be out of town, and so it was just me and my daughter, and we really had a really good evening. And so I was kind of uplifted by that. And then after I put her to bed, I had brought mail in earlier, but I hadn't gone through it. So I went through and I pulled the mail and started going through it. And I found an envelope with a thank you note from somebody who went to the Gauntlet Youth Camp, which New Spring Church had put on. And this is something that I really hadn't thought about in a while. I was listening to Perry Noble, as I often do, and he was talking about the Gauntlet and how they have scholarships that these children can go to, but they need people to donate so the scholarships can be funded, and that these children who can't afford to go can go. So I was listening, and I just thought, it was $100, and I just thought, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to, let it, help a kid go to this kind of a camp, because like I was talking about earlier, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so these were some of the kinds of things that I didn't get to do that much myself when I was young. So giving somebody an opportunity to do, something as fun as one of these camps was something I really liked the idea of. So I did. I funded a scholarship for somebody to go to the Gauntlet Youth Camp for New Spring, and then they had it at Daytona Beach. So I got this thank you note, and I started reading through it. And at first I thought it was just a generic thank you note from the church, right? Saying, "Oh, hey, the kids had a wonderful time. Thank you for your donation, and we just wanted to let you know it went great," right? But that wasn't at all what it was. What it was is a particular girl who had been funded by my scholarship was able to go, and she therefore invited her best friend to go, and her best friend went, and they both were saved, and they both were baptized at this youth event. And I was just completely blown away that the scholarship that I funded allowed somebody to be in an environment where this could happen for them. I was very moved by it. It completely turned around my night. It completely turned around, my thoughts about my whole year, really. And so it was pretty amazing. I was completely blown away, and I know I should probably be more articulate and have better words than that. But it was one of those things that I just couldn't believe that I got a note like that. And this young lady had her picture in there, and the picture of her friend as they were being baptized, and it was really something. So that was something I didn't expect, and it really turned my day around. I'll share with you here that at the Gauntlet there were over 240 salvations total, 742 baptisms, and thousands of lives changed forever. And that's from the church's website. So that was really an honor. And this brings me to a point. We're always talking about personal finance here, and we're always talking about money. And I'm more than happy for everybody to try and be a millionaire. I know some people that's not really their goal. Maybe they don't think money is something you should want or pursue. And I don't think in terms of just money itself, you should pursue it in that way. But what I do believe and what I do know is that it's important for us to be a good steward for the money that we have. And when we are, it seems like more seems to find its way to us. And so we're given more. And what I believe is that as we are blessed, we can be a blessing to others in both large and small ways. I mean, sometimes it's maybe you pay for the person behind you in line at Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever you go, or pay somebody's check at a restaurant, right? I mean, just these little things. It doesn't have to cost a lot to make a change and help somebody feel better and make their day. And it'll make you feel better too. I mean, it's just one of those crazy things. So we're blessed so we can bless others. And I really, I've talked about that a lot with my friends. I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast here, but it was really brought home to me with that thank you note that I had really had an impact on this girl's life just because I had the funds to fund this one scholarship. Now, just think if I had the funds to fund a lot more, then, I could have impacted a lot more people. So that's what I'm going to tell you is I think you should try to make as much money as you can because you can do more good if you have more money. Going back to a Bible story, the Good Samaritan was only able to help the man who had been injured because he had money. So remember, money isn't always evil. Rich people aren't always bad. You can help people if you have money. So that I'm going to wrap up talking about that. But that's just how much I was touched by that. It really moved me, and I wanted to share that on the show here because when you're in debt and you're trying to dig your way out, it's hard to even think about those kinds of things. But I want you to think about that because that's the reward for taking care of yourself. When you take good care of yourself, when you're a good steward of the things that you've been given, then these other blessings happen and you can help other people. and you can bless them and impact their lives. And again, it's great for them. They feel wonderful. It's a wonderful thing, but it makes you feel so good. I mean, it made my night, it made my year. And, I really, it moved me a great deal. So I'll stop talking about that now. I think I've already said that once, but I mean it this time. All right. So for those of you, who haven't subscribed to my podcast yet, I would encourage you to go do that. You can go to cashcarconvert.com/iTunes, and you can go out there and subscribe to the Cash Car Convert podcast. You can also use that same link to go out and leave a rating and review. And as I'm recording this show, I've got 48 reviews done. I've got actually 50 ratings. So I've got 50 5-star ratings, but I only have 48 reviews. So when I get 50 ratings and reviews, then I will give away Smart Money, Smart Kids with Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruz. And again, this is an autographed copy of the book. So I'll be giving that away as soon as that happens. And really looking forward to the opportunity to give that book away. I know that's going to bless somebody. And, it's another one of those things that might change somebody's life. That might change somebody's child's life. So it's an honor for me to be able to give this book away, especially an autographed copy. It was great to meet Dave and Rachel. They're wonderful people. So if you haven't gone out and left a rating and review for the Cash Car Convert podcast, I would really ask that you go out there and do that. It won't take you much time. You don't have to spend a lot of time writing the review, but all the feedback I get is really beneficial to me, and it allows me to better build and shape the show. I'm going to do one last call out about that. I've had a number of people list in their reviews that they've saved thousands of dollars by listening to my show. Some of the people, I know how that has impacted them. I know why they've saved money and how they've saved money. But if you and I haven't met or corresponded, I would really appreciate it if you could just shoot me an email and let me know how this podcast has saved you thousands of dollars. Because what I'd like to do is I would like to share it with my audience, and I don't have to use your name or anything like that. You can be John or John too or whatever, but I want to share it because what I know is that whatever situation you were in and however this show impacted you and helped you to save those thousands of dollars, then there's somebody else out there that story would resonate with. And I would love the opportunity to share it and give those people an opportunity to benefit the same way you have. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this show. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every listener. God bless you guys and have a great week.
Daddy, I love you.